Hey everyone, I'm glad y'all came back. If it's your first time here, thank you for showing up. If you're returning, thank you again for coming back. So anyway, the first thing that I probably want, well, really this whole video is just going to be around one topic. And this is just something that I went through myself, like probably like a few months back or so. But I basically just want to touch on the topic of like recovering from rejection. And I think what's funny about the topic of recovering from rejection is that this is something that could be touched on in relationships, business, um, yeah, just like in a multitude of things, maybe even health, depending on how you look at it. But the key thing that I want to talk about with rejection is like, I want to definitely talk about like, suppose you studied and suppose you went through school and you got all these certifications and you didn't get that job you wanted. You went through the interview, you went through the first round, you were very charming, you were very presentable, you dressed nicely, they liked the way you carried yourself. You were thinking it was going to go all right. You went through the second round was amazing, you knocked your socks off. Get to the third round, you ball out, you do what you do because you're a talented individual, and then you just never get called back from that third round. And it seemed like you had a good rapport with the manager. It seemed like you had a good rapport with the staff who was working there, because sometimes now in interviews they like to include the staff in on the interview process, and they like to ask you questions as well. Or for example, when it comes to rejection, maybe someone, I feel like, like someone leaving you could also be a form of rejection, but also it could be romantically as well. Maybe you're rejected by a certain individual who you deem to be attractive. They just don't share the same feelings for you romantically as they might platonically. So I want to talk about like recovering from rejection, whether that be in business or relationships. But enough rambling because I'm going to get straight into it. Because side note, I just don't like all that bullshit when it comes to rambling with these goddamn YouTube videos, especially when I see motherfuckers doing it. And I know technically, ironically, right now, I'm being a hypocrite by doing that, but that annoys the shit out of me too. So I'm just going to get straight into it. Anyway, the first thing that I want to talk about when it comes to, in my opinion, dealing with rejection and how I dealt with it, or just essentially how I try to deal with it as best as I can, because I'm only human. So the first thing that I want to talk about with it comes to dealing with rejection here is that number one, this is something that you can't do. Whatever it was, whatever rejected you, or whatever opportunity you had that you just missed that, do not sit in that feeling. The reason why I say don't sit in that feeling is because sitting in that feeling or allowing yourself to quote unquote stay in that sorrow or stay in that state of wanting to just turn all the lights off and lay in bed and bed rot and shit, it's contagious. It's not a good thing. It really isn't. And it could feel like it's the right thing because you've just been crushed by whatever opportunity this is. And that maybe have felt like a lifeline to you. So you can't sit in the bed and you can't bed rot. So, and I know it seems like one of those things to where it's like, oh, well, this is something that I hear all the time. No, I'm telling you in the sense that do anything except sit in that feeling. If you have to try to line up 100 more opportunities, or if you have to constantly go out every night, I'm not telling you to go out and get drunk, because dulling it with alcohol and drugs isn't the best thing to do anyway. But I am saying do not socially isolate yourself. Because the thing about social isolation will kill you quicker than anything else. If you look at, for example, sometimes some of these hardened prisoners and whatnot who could be in some of these prisons, a lot of times if you see them where there's hearing stories about them go into the hole, and then they end up when they're down in that dark cell or dark little chamber or whatever, and they killing themselves, and they starting to talk to roaches and talk to rats because the rat is their only friend, or they doing something where they rubbing shit on themselves. It's because of a lot of times it's the social isolation factor that's draining on their spirit. So the first thing that you got to do is you can't just socially isolate yourself. And I can understand why you would want to, because it may feel embarrassing in this moment. I remember when my contract was coming to an end with a company that I was working with, and I was going out for these jobs and I was applying, pretty much doing the same old, song and dance. You get that nice tie, you get the nice shirt. But I was getting the interviews. I was getting the first round, the second round, the third round. So I was getting a lot further than what other people were getting in, the bullshit dumpster market that job hunting is now. I was getting a lot further than a lot of other people, but it was just feeling a lot worse to me and making me want to just not really speak to anybody and making me want to just kind of lay in my bed all day, because it would hurt when I would hear about all these incentives and potentially what they would pay only for me not to get the role. So number one is don't socially isolate yourself, because that's what I had started doing. And even my girl at the time, she was telling me that I can see the negativity reeking off of you. Well, me and her, we had a conversation about this the other night, but she was saying that I could see the negativity reeking off of you. And just that type of attitude really can become contagious. So first thing is don't socially isolate yourself. The second thing is, and you can say that this goes with the first thing, but I would say seek counsel with your support system. So if that's maybe a therapist at the time, maybe like if you have a therapist, which I had a therapist at the time and I was talking to, if maybe you have to bump it up from seeing them once a month to maybe seeing them 4 times that month, which, once a week, and you have to maybe start really leaning on your friends and family at the time and sharing that load with them, then open up and talk about how you're feeling. Even just a simple conversation of, hey, I'm just not feeling the best because I didn't get this job role. That can do a lot more for your mental health than just maybe just sitting around in the bed with the lights and the curtains all, crunched up and shit. So seek counsel, with your support, whether that be your family, whether that be, maybe in like your local church, or maybe people who share your same faith. And then lastly, I don't know what else to tell you if you just still haven't been listening, but if you're an atheist, maybe you should click off the video, because I don't know what to tell you after this. But this is just the biggest thing for me for what I leaned on in my video, in my time of darkness, or in my season of sorrow in this point. I would say that rejection is Yah's protection. So rejection is the Lord's protection. And the reason why I say this is because, in all seriousness, you could maybe want this job, or you could want this person really badly. You really could want that. And you're thinking that it's going to be a great step for your career. You're thinking and you're looking at the fact of, man, I would be making double or triple what my salary is right now. And I've got the skills. They contacted me for a reason. That's what you're thinking. But what you're not seeing is how toxic that workplace is. What you're not seeing is, beyond how curvy she is, how fucked up she is mentally. What you're not seeing is just how draining she is spiritually. So I say this to say that a lot of times when we experience rejection in our life, it's not because you aren't good enough. And I get it. I really do understand that when you went through it and you pursued this opportunity, or you have pursued that person, you're thinking that you're not good enough because you just didn't get it. That's not the case a lot of times. You didn't get it because it was something blocking you from the bullshit that was actually behind the curtain. So if I could put this into example, let's say you go from, let's say you've been studying, you go from, I'm just going to say just generalize this with a job because I don't want to start using IT terms and that confuses some people who just watching the video. So just generalize it, whatever. You, let's just say you work with customers or whatever, and you're making at most before taxes 40K a year, right? So there's this other job that will pay 80K a year. So you've been doing your studying, you've been going through it, and you are on pay, you're qualified to go work that job that pays 80K. It'll double your salary, it'll double potentially what you drive, where you live. You can get into a nicer apartment. You're going to be able to go live on that side of town that you want to live in. And it's just sweet. Everything's lining up for you, but you don't get it. So that can now make you start feeling feelings of inadequacy, feelings of where you're feeling like you're just not that good. But in reality, you are good, but that place was not good enough for you. So again, a lot of times rejection truly is Yah's protection. But on the flip end of it, sometimes you're just not ready for that position yet, or you're just not ready to be in that type of position. Because let's say, for example, for any parents out there, or let's just say if you're not a parent, you can reflect on this yourself. Let's say you are 18, right? Or you're back to being 18. And for people who may be 18 and you're watching this, let's just say you're back at 9 years old, right? Let's say I was to give your 9-year-old self then $1 million. And let's say for those people who are past the age of 18, let's say I was to give your 18-year-old self or this 18-year-old kid $1 million. Do you really think you do the right thing with it? Yes, it's a great thing that you're getting this in this position right now, but how realistically do you actually think you're going to do the right thing with it? You're just not ready for that yet. It doesn't mean that you're not a good person. It doesn't mean that you won't put in the work, but it just means that you're not ready for it yet. So a lot of times when we do face rejection, it's just sometimes we need to stop what we're doing and get out of the identity of self and get out of this woe is me attitude that we're not good enough. No, sometimes it's just that that place wasn't good enough or this person wasn't good enough for you. So it was protection that they gave you rejection. And then sometimes you're just not ready for that opportunity. You can come back to it later on when you're more seasoned in life and you're more established and you can make wiser decisions. So that's basically, in short, the video that I wanted to talk about. Hopefully, this didn't run too long. If you enjoyed it and you got something out of it, please keep coming back. Thank you and goodbye.